Let's say good morning to our first guest of the day, Steve Parson. He is the publisher of the West Virginia Independent Observer. Joins us here in studio on about a monthly basis, I'd say. Steve, good morning to you.
Okay, so you're going to get me in trouble now because my wife is actually the publisher. You know, she's the boss. So you've just promoted me. So I'm going to.
Sweet.
Yeah, but I'm going to get demoted again when I get back to the office, back to editor.
Steve, I can't be settling these internecine squabbles between you and your spouse.
Yeah. No.
Internecine.
And if you,
that's good, yeah.
and if you do not want to buck Harriet. She is the brain. That's right. She is a very sharp individual.
I think you were going to say she is the brains of the operation.
And then I backed off very quickly. I took a more neutral approach.
Yeah, no, she was actually up on Capitol Hill testifying before the Senate on artificial intelligence last week. So yeah, she's definitely in a. It's a slightly different and a bigger room, you know, with.
But is it filled with as prestigious of people as the ones you have here?
Well, they certainly think so.
That's a good answer.
As do we.
Exactly.
That's funny. You get a bunch of guys together, they all think they're the smartest guys in the room.
That's what makes us men.
That's true. That is
Okay,
true.
let's talk about they are the smartest guys in the room by definition, right?
Yes.
Because they're in the room.
Because they're in the room.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right.
So
Let's talk about Jefferson County.
So here we are. Yes. So I'm the editor of the Observer. It's observerwv.news. So we have again shifted really to a weekly electronic format. So if you want to hear anything more about the pearls of wisdom you hear today, go observerwv.news, sign up, and maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you won't. But
are you putting anything out on paper form yet?
We do. We actually have an issue coming out this week, and we use the paper to sort of take what we've been writing about on a weekly basis and distribute it out to the county. We try to hit anywhere to 8,000 to 10,000 households on the mailing.
I knew you had paper, but the way you were just talking, I thought you might have discontinued it.
And we're, again, it's as paper costs go up, postage costs go up. Every time I drive in here, I see all the yellow and red boxes out, Hornby Media out behind the station here. So, as much as we love paper,
artifacts.
The digital formats are the way of the future. I'd say the Journal has moved to a weekly and electronic every day. So
how much does it cost for one mailing or one through the mail?
Well, just to give you an example, my postage, I can't tell you the exact cost, but I can tell you the increases. So my postage went up 2 cents a newspaper 2 months ago.
And so going 8,000 to 9,000 is fairly pricey quickly.
It does. It multiplies up, and then and if every month that every 6 months that postage goes up by a penny, that's the proverbial the Chinese emperor and the grains of rice. Pretty soon you've got the whole
double one every square, right?
So the related question, Steve, is why do you even continue the paper copy?
Well, because it is a way of getting it out to the entire community. And it's awareness. I mean, that's why we started the Observer, or bought it, and sort of changed the format, was to help inform the community. So if it sits behind a paywall, if you have to firmly go out and get it, we don't live in a culture where everybody gets a newspaper every day. So
but we live in a culture that most folks are familiar with computers now.
Yes.
And unlike we had this same discussion 10, 12, 15 years or so ago, and the argument was that a large group did not have computers. I think that's changed.
Oh, yeah. It's in their pockets. I mean, we actually are publishing. We don't publish for computers. We publish for the phone.
Okay.
There is no pleasure in sitting down in the morning with a cup of coffee and a phone in your hand to read the news. The pleasure is to sit, and it's gone now, but the pleasure of sitting with a cup of coffee and a newspaper, that was so much better than sitting and looking at a tablet.
But I have to say, our mission isn't to give you pleasure in the morning.
Yeah.
That makes the open.
That's right. Yeah. That circle around to my question a second ago.
Yeah.
Why do you continue to put paper out? Since most of people can get the news, if they care to, via the computer.
Well, again, we do both. You can't just stop doing one. So part of it is stubbornness on my part. Part of it is there's as John's saying, there's value to having it in a printed format, because one of the beauties of the printed format is that it's done. it's finished, and it sits there, and you can come back to it, and you can refer back to it. So there's a certain amount of permanence to it, and it is just it is a broader. You can glance at it, whereas like you're basically on a computer. It's very linear, even though it's multimedia. But with a newspaper, it's laid out.
Yeah,
You know,
I know what a newspaper
No,
provides.
what I'm saying is that it's like when you go into a restaurant. You have a lot of different things on the menu and different ways of presenting it. So it's just part of the mix. I don't think
Well,
paper will
I'm
ever
glad
go
you
away.
do. I for one, am glad you publish in paper.
Right, but you brought me in here to talk about Jefferson County and
For Bill to cross-examine you as to why you publish with paper.
well, but that was one of the interesting things. Talking about Jefferson County, the fire service and the ambulance services. The union reps for the ambulance service were at the county commission about 2 weeks ago, and they were getting cross-examined. And so there's definitely this. There's two things going on in the county right now. The county commission is looking at the future of the fire service, but they're also dealing with the present of the ambulance service that they took on a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And the costs of the ambulance services, they projected them to be a certain level. They are higher than they were projected when they took it on, and that's not a surprise. And they are struggling with how to fit that into the budget. At the same time, they're looking down the road at the fire service, saying, well, at some point we're going to have to probably take this into the budget, and so that's where they're at right now.
Yeah, they've got some issues there, and there's some unhappy folks. And what do you see as the best way to solve this problem right now, Steve, from the sides that you've talked to?
When you say this problem, you're going to be a little more.
Well, you've got a union that's not happy right now with what's going on, and we went through it. Bill himself went through it with the paid volunteer firefighter back and forth that took a few years to negotiate. That's John's talked about brawls.
I went through it on the other side, yeah.
Yeah,
brawls breaking out when paid and volunteers fight the same fire.
They're two different issues. I think what the county is doing right now with the town hall meetings they're having with the at the fire companies,
Mm-hmm.
it's a different path than they took when they absorbed the ambulance company. It was when they did the ambulance sort of takeover. It was sort of presented, this is done. This is what we're going to do. And they kind of had to backpedal from community pressure, like, well, we need to put a few more stations in and increase the budget. This time they're actually going out and they're talking to all the volunteers. To your point, Bill, it's like they're actually trying to understand what the issues are. One of the interesting things that I've seen, when this came up about a year and a half ago, maybe a little more, when the Fire and Rescue Association came to the county commission asking for a levy, it was to fund equipment purchases. And not a lot of it was going to go towards operational expenses and manpower expenses. And now, as the county commission is going around at these town halls, what we're hearing from the volunteers is they need help on the staffing side. They find our equipment is okay. I mean, we obviously need to have plans to replace it, but what the need that we're seeing so far that's come out has been, some of them are doing okay with volunteers. They're getting some new folks in, but they recognize that it's not sustainable,
especially during the business hours.
That's what they said. So, like at night, they're pretty good with volunteer coverage, but during the day, it's relying completely on the paid staff from the ESA, which are the crews that are they're staffing the ambulances, but they're also cross-trained to run the fire equipment.
It's interesting, as Rob alluded, Berkeley County spent several years trying to work this problem, and then it actually worked out quite well. But what I discovered, to my surprise, was the embedded culture that's within the volunteer fire departments. And it's not quite as much so today as it has been in years past. Everything in the community revolved around the volunteer fire department. That was the social hall. Mm-hmm. They had the bingo. That's where they came together if there was a problem in the community. The volunteer fire department were literally the heart and soul of a particular community.
No, it's absolutely true. Because you think about it, why are you coming out in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
To go into a burning building? It's because it's your community, it's your people, it's your family, and it's hard.
But that was one of the difficulties as well, because they recognized the need to have paid staff there, especially during the day, but they did not really want to do anything that would threaten this culture. And so that's the problem that has to be reconciled, trying to provide the needed service without threatening the culture.
Yeah, well, I guess part of it is not approaching it as a problem, but as approaching it as a feature. I mean, when I was over, they had the town hall at Friendship Fire Station, which is in Harpers Ferry, and the chief was talking about that. Is that same thing we heard at Citizens. They're bringing in young people, but they also recognize that the world is different. I mean, these younger people are not working here in the county, and while volunteering may be good for them, it can't be their whole life like it was for their fathers or their grandfathers, because, the world doesn't work that way anymore. Interesting story when I was over at C.W. Shipley the other day, the Friendship guys came over to do Fire Safety Week. And they did the stop, drop, and roll your teens. They put on the mask, and there was a lieutenant there, and he was telling me about how when he went to school there, the fire teams came and they did the demonstrations, and that's how we got into it. And he was sitting there with his kindergarten-age son right next to him, looking at him, like watching his father. So these are traditions that do get passed down in these communities, and the bonds are very strong. And the fire halls were the center. So, hopefully that's something that they integrate into this rather than, sort of push aside.
I think they have to.
There's a national drumbeat that I don't think people realize, that volunteers are under siege by the IAFF, by the union. It's been going on for a very long time. And
did you experience it personally, John?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the idea is there's this feeling that every volunteer position is a union position. Every volunteer is a scab. And it's not across the board. I mean, this is just kind of the drumbeat that's being built. I recommend that the folks on the commission subscribe to the IAFF magazine, and that they subscribe to Firehouse magazine, and just see the difference in the reporting that's going on. So this isn't a local issue. This is it's sort of in the fabric of volunteerism now, and it's not just here. It's across the country. So
it's a general, this professionalization,
and that's it starts
American
with that
life.
It starts with that word.
Yeah.
I will tell you, and that just frosts my flakes every time I hear it. I have they're all expired now, but I had.
I knew this was going to set them off.
To call the differentiation between professionals and volunteers is wrong.
Yeah.
You got paid in volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
There is no firefighter on this planet who has a certification that I did not have.
Yeah.
At the time, I'm sure there are new certifications that have come out, but the fact that I never got a paycheck did not mean that I was not a professional firefighter, right?
Yeah.
So
the point I was making is that you see this in other careers and professions. There's a lot more requirements to be and certifications. And that's one of the challenges that volunteers face, is they have to have the same certifications, the same trainings as the people are getting paid for it. One of the things I've seen here, locally, though, is a significant number of the volunteers in Jefferson County are paid staff elsewhere, whether it's in Loudoun or in Berkeley. So, they're doing this on the side, what they're doing during the day. So it's the same people.
Another way to solve this problem, or to help with this problem, if what I've heard is correct, that volunteers are not allowed to staff ambulances in Jefferson County. That's just wrong.
That is something that Jefferson County, for whatever reason, could not figure that one out. And they just drew a very bright line, and that was a source of a lot of the friction, because you had several volunteer companies that they had extra equipment, they had the guys, and there's a big value for the volunteers to be able to do that, because again, because a lot of them are career, these volunteer time is also helping them meet their certifications and their hours, and so and it's a way to build the pipeline. And so they broke that a little bit.
And they're certified by the state. So it's not a state issue; it is a county issue.
It
Jefferson
was
County.
something, the best I could understand, or it was explained to me, is it was insurance. I mean, there's, they just, and that's all I got out of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I call BS on that.
Well,
but it's-
I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. Yeah.
So in the thousands of calls that I ran over almost 16 years, nobody ever once asked if I was paid or volunteer. Never
Yeah.
once. Because people don't care. When you're having chest pains or your loved one is bleeding, you want the box there. You want the trip to the hospital. And the fact that the person in the right seat is paid or volunteer, or just a firefighter, somebody to help carry the stretcher, to scoop and swoop, put them into the box and take them to the hospital with advanced first aid. That's better than having a guy bleed out or die from a heart attack in his house while we're waiting for an ambulance to come from an extra 5 or 10 miles away. This is just madness.
As a
to
person
me.
who's ridden in an ambulance as a guest, as a passenger, I can tell you that I didn't care whether the firefighter or the EMT was union, non-union, volunteered, or paid. I just assumed that they were qualified, and I wanted them to get me to the hospital as fast as they could.
And you think about it, it really is a box with wheels. I'm sorry, this is shtick for me. I've made this speech 1,000 times. It doesn't, you want to have an EMT on the scene of an auto accident to cut somebody out of a car and to do, all that sort of thing. If in fact you've got somebody who is sick, they're having a heart attack, yes, you want to establish lines. You want to stabilize them in a perfect world. If you don't have the perfect world, letting them just sit there and suffer while we wait for an advanced life support unit to come from way over someplace else, that makes no sense when you can get 2 firefighters to bring the box and the stretcher, put the guy in the stretcher and get him to the hospital with lights and sirens, and then get the medical care that he really needs. That's what the point of the ambulance is. It's not, the EMT is a nice to have. For years, we ran ambulances with advanced first aid people or no first aid people. The idea was, most ambulances were hearses for when we were growing up.
That's true.
So there's some symbolism there.
Yeah.
But, it's just, there are solutions to this problem that really need to start with the people they're serving. Let's talk about what the problem is. And the problem is helping people who are in need as quickly as possible. And that's the first solution. Everything else is secondary to that. And
We have 3 minutes left. Steve, what's the next step in this scenario in Jefferson County?
The county commission has 3 more town hall meetings. I think it's Bakerton Independent and Shepherdstown is the last one this Friday. Then they've got a consultant that's looking at data, and they'll probably be looking at a report sometime in November.
Excuse me, Steve. Same consultant.
Fitch consultant, right?
As with ambulance,
right? And the ball is going to be in the county commission's court as to whether this is something they want to take on short term, near term, whether they just want to put the study on the shelf. So it's a no crystal ball here.
The Fitch study was not well received in certain sectors.
Well, again, because the ambulance study, they basically brought the consultant in, didn't tell anybody, just fed him the numbers. He didn't get a chance to actually talk to anybody about what the numbers meant. They came out with recommendations that weren't really grounded in any reality, and just got a lot of blowback. And the county commission spent about a year sort of like backpedaling to try and get to a solution, and it still left a lot of people with bad feelings. People that had an ambulance up on the mountain, while the service levels are fine, with servicing from Harper's Ferry and Citizens, still having an ambulance and not seeing it, leaves a big hole. There's areas of the county that are growing that need ambulance services. And then underlying it all is how you're going to pay for it. And the county commission, one of the things I haven't heard them talking about is when are we going to raise the ambulance fee? Mike Commissioner Mood is the only one that said there, you know what? We haven't raised it in 10 years, and it was low when we started it, so we might be underfunding it a little bit. And I'd have to agree with him on that one.
And you can't direct the impact fees to that fee because it's got to be for a capital expenditure.
Correct. Now we're just talking about this is the operational expense, and it's not even half of what you're paying over here in Berkeley County.
We have a minute left, Steve. Anything else in the county that it deserves a highlight right now?
They're working through zoning changes. They're struggling with how to control. The big debate is do we do residential rooftops, and how do we get more commercial? The county commission seems to be pointing fingers at the cities that you're letting too many houses being built, and the cities are saying, well, they're just coming here. I mean, this is property rights. If someone buys a piece of property and it's zoned for residential, we got to let them build. And if you're going to building it in the city is probably better than putting it in the middle of a field with cows around it and bothering the cows.
Yeah, the cows that used to be on the farm that used to be behind my house used to wander out onto the highway every now and then when that transition was taking place. They just shut down traffic, being cows. Steve, good to see you again.
All right, thanks for having me.